Morning. We will begin the Board of Commissioners meeting for October 27th with the, we'll begin with Pledge of Allegiance, but as a reminder, this is a public meeting and it is being recorded, so we kindly ask that everyone maintain the same level of decorum as if this was a public meeting in person. Finally, if you are calling in on your cell phone, please remember to ensure that you've muted your phone by pressing *6. And we'll begin this morning's meeting with Pledge of Allegiance led by Commissioner Brown.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Commissioner. We will need the approval of the minutes of the September 1 and September 8th, 2020 general session and the October 22nd, 2020 briefing session and the October 19 and 21, 2020 administrative briefings.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Voting Commissioner Brown.
Yes.
Commissioner Boyce.
Yes.
Commissioner O'Grady.
Yes.
Thank you. The minutes have been approved.
All right, and on to the county auditor.
Resolution number 725-20. Resolution authorizing a contract with the Ohio State University's Kirwan Institute for the Study of Race and Ethnicity to conduct of the 2020 triennial update to property values and recommend policies and best practices in the amount of $55,504.
Good morning, Commissioners Brown, Boyce, and O'Grady. Michael Sanziano, the honor of serving as the Franklin County Auditor. Bring forward Resolution 0725-20, as being mentioned. The goal is to establish a contract for a racial equity analysis for the 2020 triennial update performed through the Ohio State University's Kirwan Institute for the Study of Race and Ethnicity. In 2019, when the new administration came in, we contracted with a professional appraisal firm to produce a performance audit of the 2017 full mass reappraisal of all property across Franklin County. A portion of the results of that appraisal firm's professional audit determined that there were many issues with past appraisal techniques and approaches that may have indirectly reflected the continuing impact of redlining and racial covenants on home values in various neighborhoods across the county. Academic review, litigation, and investigation throughout the United States have also found evidence that both private and public appraisal processes are perpetuating racial bias in real estate values and tax burdens. As the Franklin County Auditor, we just completed, as you may be well aware, the triennial update of property values, and we're working through state law and getting final sign-off by the State Department of Taxation. But we feel engaging with the Kirwan Institute follows the trends and continues this analysis at a real micro level that we want to do in terms of making and ensuring that the office is progressing towards true racial, regional, and social economic equity in the mass appraisal process across Franklin County. In addition to reviewing the work of the triennial, the scope of the work we're hoping with Kirwan will include recommendations for the 2023 mass reappraisal, which again will include a review of every property in the county on an individual basis. The triennial, what we did this year was a real estate kind of look back of sales. Every 6 years is when we have to go out and view each property individually. The contract is an important part of ensuring that all subsequent mass appraisal work reflects the value of racial and social equity and addresses ways in which historical racism in housing and real estate continue to affect property valuation. Fair and equitable remains the goal for all appraisals, but not an entirely objective process. We are required to follow state law and professional appraisal standards, and they are important. But we understand that there is more that can be done and looking to do that. This analysis will both look at where the discretion has succeeded in mitigating both current and historic racial bias and where there can be improvements. As structured, the Kirwan proposal is to be implemented in 4 phases. Phase 1 will be a full analysis, again, of the 2017 reappraisal and recommend best practices to remediate racial inequality in the appraisal process. Phase 2 will focus on the appeals process and recommend policy updates for the Board of Revision. Phase 3 will compare and contrast the 2017 reappraisal with the 2020 triennial from a racial equity lens. And Phase 4 will engage the community with the findings of the analysis in order to host community discussions about past and future experiences with mass appraisal across Franklin County. Always happy to share. The money doesn't come out of the county general fund, but will come out of the real estate funds we have discretion of in the auditor's office. Pending any questions or comments, I would appreciate your support of the resolution.
Auditor Stinziano, I really appreciate you taking this approach. Institutional racism is in every aspect of everyday life, and intentionally it was baked into the real estate industry, as we know. So I appreciate very much you taking this approach as you're approaching the triennial. Thank you.
I'd add the same. I'm sorry, Commissioner Brown, were you finished? I apologize.
I was finished. So
Okay.
if you have any comments, go ahead.
Okay, thank you. I too want to join you in recognizing and thanking Auditor Stinziano for really just thinking in this way. I mean, part of what we've learned over since 2018, as we've studied this issue around racism, is the historical systemic issues of racism. And some of them, as it relates to even tax valuations, are historic as opposed to current, and they just kind of carry on. They kind of, and so you addressing this, I think, really says a lot about your leadership. I do have a couple of questions, and I don't want to appear as though I'm not supportive of this, but I think this is worthy of a little more conversation here. The first is with regards to the Kirwan Institute. What's their experience with this type of work? I know they're related to OSU and they have that sort of credibility to them, but I'm curious of their experience. The other thing, if you could, part B is, it's kind of a double-edged sword. If you could get into this, we might find that while there may be racial implications in the valuations, correcting that could raise the actual valuation, ultimately raising taxes in those areas. And so have you thought about that and kind of how you're going to address that? Those are my two questions.
So I'll start with the latter. That is one of the concerns as we had the performance audit come back, and they were talking particularly about land grading. Same house, same specs, same lot size in one neighborhood in our county can be 2 miles away and not be valued the same. And so what's that balance? Is the one rated too high and the one that's lower come up? And so it is on the radar. I think we're going to look in that partnership of how to create that right balance. There are other jurisdictions across the country that are continuing to evaluate this as well. What we haven't seen is those big jumps as there's the equalizing that's occurring. So on the radar, not knowing kind of what the next steps and recommendations will be, but we don't want to have that situation happen. We are already hearing and have those concerns from property owners that they are being property taxed out of their neighborhoods. As I mentioned, following the Department of Taxation's guidance continues to be a challenge. And if you're watching what's maybe happening in some other counties, there's a very robust discussion between county auditors going through their tri or mass and what guidance they're receiving from the state. So a little bit of to be continued, and happy to follow up with you, Commissioner Boyce, as we go through this process as to what we see and what that impact will be. We don't want to be catching anyone by surprise. We don't expect giant jumps, but we do think knowing how important the investment in building that equity in a home is for future financial success and stability of families should not be defined by zip code, should not be defined by past practices, and want to establish the correct standard and be a leader, not only in Ohio, but across the country for Franklin County. On the first part with Kirwan, it's been an ongoing discussion, but I've been really impressed by some of the presentations and work they've done on redlining. I think they know, and we're going to lean in on their expertise in terms of how it then equates to property valuation. They don't have the appraisal firm side, but that additional lens is something we found missing a little bit with the appraisal firms that are available. And so Kirwan has the historical knowledge, understanding the trends and being able to dig them in the numbers we're able to provide. through areas that they're going to focus on. So have they done this before? Not that I'm aware of, but we are very confident that they've shown a very great knowledge of both the circumstances that we're seeing, and then using the numbers to kind of help flush us out and be in a better place in terms of recommendations and next steps.
Okay. Well, I would like to ask, thanks for both those responses. I'm really glad you're on tune. You're in tune with that double-edged sword, because I've happened to have been on the Economic Mobility Committee for NACO, traveling the country, and I know that has been a challenge in many places across the country, where you look to eradicate some of the institutional issues that have existed, but then there's another impact on, and so, but that all the even more fits with our work in poverty. The information that you generate will really be useful for us as we go forward with the poverty, with our blueprint to address poverty. So I hope that you'll stay in touch with us on this, and we can maybe collaborate a little deeper to address some of those issues and figure out, not just when we change the evaluation, but then what are the other things that we can do to support this neighborhood that might have been identified with some historical and systemic issues. So thanks.
Absolutely. And I look forward to the partnership.
Me too.
Mike, we appreciate the work on this. Fighting systemic racism is just or addressing it, fighting it and addressing it it's kind of in some ways it seems like it's a never-ending battle. Addressing redlining and addressing the type of stuff that you guys are addressing here is important. We just had a conversation last week. Administrator Wilson and I and Director Bivens and others were on call last week with Tom Goodney from the Education Service Center about doing racial equity training with our suburban school district partners, because we're hoping that by doing some of that it may help those suburban school districts to address policy changes and policy needs in those districts. We've seen here recently in the press and in the media that they have inadequate or at least not consistent policies as it relates to how they deal with the issue of race in some of these school districts. We've seen it in Dublin, we've seen it in Pickerington most recently, and so we reached out to Tom to offer the idea of partnering with them on racial equity training, because we're hoping that in doing so it'll put for the top of mind the issue of how do we address policy decisions, and how do we make sure that racial equity is something that these school districts, equitable policies and equitable policy decision making is top of mind and forefront in their decision making. Again, just kind of systemic in the way that they address these issues and the way that they think about the way they're doing things, just like the stuff that the appraisal and the reappraisal of properties that has been impacting this community for generations, and so applaud the work that you're doing and the thoughtfulness that you put into this. Hopefully counties across the state and across the country will begin to follow suit and think about this as they do their reappraisals. So thanks for your thoughtfulness, and thanks for being a leader in this regard.
If there are no further comments or questions, I'll move for approval.
Hey,
2520.
Before I second, I did want to point out Director Bivens, or Deputy Administrator Bivens, sent a text just saying, and I think this is important, that she says, reminder, this supports housing goal number 5 in our blueprint, that increasing the supply of an equitable opportunity to access quality housing, part of a long-term action step toward affordability in neighborhoods experiencing growth. to protect affordable housing stock. And I'm so glad you raised that, Deputy Administrator, because Auditor, we try to align everything we do. And I think that's part of our strategy, is aligning everything we do with this effort and this blueprint. And so thank you for taking on, doing your part, really that connects with some of this work. And Deputy Administrator, I would ask that maybe you follow up with the auditor's office, so just so that they can have a better link to the work with regard to that data and how we utilize it, what we do with the innovation hub to help them analyze it and figure out some of the programs and efforts they're doing. And I just think, that communication point will be critical to everything. You are on mute, Deputy Administrator.
I said, absolutely. Thank you. And thank you, Auditor.
Second, thank you.
Moved and seconded. Voting, Commissioner Brown,
Yes.
Commissioner Boyce,
Yes.
Commissioner Grady.
Yes.
Resolution number 725-20 has been adopted.
Nice work, Mike.
Economic sustainability, it also goes to the NDP's game changers. Economic sustainability, the evaluation of your house, being able to accumulate wealth, being able to have property value that is a part of your overall net worth. These are all things that have put the African American community members. It's all stuff that for generations have put folks behind the 8 ball and have made it just difficult for people to be able to catch up in the African American community and throughout the country. And so it's definitely something that goes towards economic sustainability as well. So it's one of the game changers that NDP recognizes as something that will change the quality of life for Black folks in our world. So just another good job, Mike. Good job.
Commissioner Grady, I'm so glad you brought that up. I know this is the place to get into this, but I'll just add, and I'm glad the auditor's still here. And one of the things we have to think about is, being careful not to, as we do evaluate those properties, if it does bring it up and there's an overall benefit for your overall asset value, but we're careful not to inundate them with a surge of tax increase. And so maybe there's a way to spread out that evaluation over time so that the impact doesn't have that adverse effect. And so but your point about wealth, because in my experience in most of this, what we've learned, I feel like that's where the rubber really meets the road. And that's how we were talking about poverty, and that's in wealth accumulation. And so this is an important part of that. And so just, I think, being careful that we don't just slam it on them if there's a huge change could be important.
So, Commissioner Boyce, this is an area where we have to look to our partners in the General Assembly, and State Senator Craig in particular. He's been a great champion proposing legislation to put what we're going to refer to as a circuit breaker. Other states, other jurisdictions kind of cap what that annual growth could be so that slamming doesn't occur. At the same time, I think improvements to the homestead exemption could exist. So that's another area where jurisdictions have been able to provide additional relief. So I think there's definitely a tension and approach. The challenge is what the priorities of the General Assembly as a body continue to be. But I know across the state where a lot of jurisdictions are seeing 17, 20, 22% value increases, which is a good thing. How that then equates and correlates to property tax has the attention of the entire Auditors Association of how we can do a better job of mitigating spikes. And while the process is built to avoid spikes, that inequity that right now you've got 40 counties doing it, next year another percentage, and then the year after that a different percentage. They're all looking at different time frames. We weren't allowed to include the impact of the pandemic and property values and property usage this year because Ohio law didn't provide for it, for example. And so trying to address that as well. But keeping our eye on the ball and continuing to make sure those concerns are ones that are top of mind as we go through what's statutorily required and where we can improve property owners.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for raising that, Commissioner O'Grady. Nice. point.
I think we need you to second still, Commissioner Boyd.
No, I seconded. We voted.
We voted, Commissioner.
Oh, that's right.
We're on to the clerk of
The
courts.
clerk,
Permission.
the clerk of courts,
Thank you. Resolution number 720.
who have been waiting patiently.
Resolution number 726-20. Resolution authorizing a contract extension and modification with Huntington National Bank for banking services in the amount of $25,000.
Morning, Commissioners. Sean Reeder, Fiscal Officer for the Clerk of Courts. And as you're probably aware, I have Clerk O'Shaughnessy with me today. Today's resolution, Huntington Bank was awarded the clerk's bank services contract under Resolution 62917. The original contract was a 3-year term with an additional 2-year extension available. Today's resolution would modify that contract's 2-year extension period to separate 1-year extension periods. And with that modification, the clerk and Huntington Bank wish to extend the existing contract for 1 year through September 2021. You have to answer any questions regarding that.
Is this a fee that they charge us for the actual banking services that we utilize them for? So whether it's we maybe explain a little more about the contract.
Yeah, with the contract, the banking services, there are fees associated to the contract. In our original contract and existing contract with modification and extension, we receive earning credits that allow us to offset some of those fees. So what you're seeing with that not to exceed that $25,000 is essentially what we would be speculating our final expense would be with the bank services charges after those earning credits are applied each month.
Got you. Okay. Thank you.
Sure.
If there are no further comments or questions, I'll move for passage of 72620.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Voting, Commissioner Brown,
Yes.
Commissioner Boyce,
Yes.
Commissioner O'Grady.
Yes.
Resolution number 726-20 has been adopted.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Thank you. All right, now on to the coroner.
Resolution number 727-20. Resolution authorizing a transfer of general fund appropriations for the purchase of personal protective equipment.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Good
Kara
morning.
Cruikshank. The coroner's office for many months has been struggling to obtain proper PPE due to shortages from COVID-19. We have been able to find and purchase level 3 gowns, shoe covers, and masks that have not been available due to the COVID crisis with resources. We have a very limited time frame to seize this opportunity and address our shortages of PPE here. The 2 vendors we will be purchasing from are Sterling Distribution and Fisher Scientific for the amount of $43,865. I'll be requesting your approval pending any questions.
If there are no questions, I will move for passage of 72720.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Voting, Commissioner Brown,
Yes.
Commissioner Boyce,
Yes.
Commissioner O'Grady.
Yes.
Resolution number 727-20 has been adopted.
Thank you.
Welcome.
All right, and now we are on to the engineer.
Resolution number 728-20. Report 11th of the county engineer establishing the sum of compensation and damages for a property owner in the matter of the improvement of Reynoldsburg, New Albany Road at Clark State Road in the amount of $68,823.
Good morning, Commissioners. On behalf of Engineer Robertson, my name is Fritz Crozier, Chief Deputy of Engineering. As noted, our first resolution seeks compensation for property owner abutting the Reynoldsburg, New Albany Road at Clark State Road Improvement Project. This intersection improvement project is located in the northeast part of Franklin County in Jefferson Township, and we negotiated with the property owner, and compensation is based on appraised fair market value. Pending any questions, I would ask for your approval.
If there are no questions or comments, I'll move for approval of 72820.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Voting, Commissioner Brown,
Yes.
Commissioner Boyce,
Yes.
Commissioner O'Grady.
Yes.
Resolution number 728-20 has been adopted. Resolution number 729-20. Resolution approving street, storm, and water improvement plans for Briarfield, Jefferson Township, Franklin County, Ohio.
Commissioners, our next resolution seeks approval of the street, storm, and water improvement plans for the Briarfield development. This development is located in northeast Franklin County in Jefferson Township, the northwest corner of Havens Corners Road and Man Road. This resolution will allow the developer to begin installing the necessary infrastructure for the development of the subdivision. Pending any questions, I would ask for your approval.
I'll move for passage of 729-20.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Voting, Commissioner Brown,
Yes.
Commissioner Boyce,
Yes.
Commissioner O'Grady.
Yes.
Resolution number 729-20 has been adopted. Resolution number 730-20, preliminary allocation and final encumbrance of county motor vehicle license fees funds, $5 for the city of Columbus in the amount of $2,100,000.
Commissioners, the City of Columbus has requested to use a portion of their permissive fee funds to upgrade traffic signals at a variety of intersections within the city boundaries. County engineer has viewed the proposed use of funds and has determined that they meet the allowable use of these funds. Any questions, I would ask for your approval.
There are no questions. I'll move for passage of 730-20.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Voting, Commissioner Brown,
Yes.
Commissioner Boyce,
Yes.
Commissioner O'Grady.
Yes.
Resolution number 730-20 has been adopted. Resolution number 731-20, preliminary allocation and final encumbrance of county motor vehicle license fee funds of $5 for the city of Columbus in the amount of $1 million.
Commissioners, a similar resolution to the prior, the City of Columbus has requested to use a portion of their permissive fee funds to install new and upgrade existing signage and pavement markings along a variety of roadways within the city boundaries. The county engineer has viewed these as well and has determined that they meet the allowable use of these funds. Pending any questions, I'd ask for your approval.
There are no questions. I'll move for passage of 731-20.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Voting, Commissioner Brown,
Yes.
Commissioner Boyce,
Yes.
Commissioner O'Grady.
Yes.
Resolution number 731-20 has been adopted.
Thank you.
All right, to the Office on Aging.
Resolution number 732-20, resolution authorizing a COVID-19 response grant to community refugee and immigration services to address social isolation and hardship among refugee and immigrant seniors in Franklin County in the amount of $33,000.
Good morning, Commissioners. I'm Amy Funk, Assistant Director of Administration, and I'm joined this morning by Director Orville Johns and Becky Becker, Assistant Director of Operations. This COVID response grant project will help refugee and immigrant seniors who are struggling due to social isolation during the COVID pandemic in Franklin County. Grant funds will be used to purchase at least 50 Chromebooks, pay for Zoom memberships, internet hotspots for at least 10 seniors, thereby allowing seniors who otherwise would not have been able to participate in group meetings and engage in ESL citizenship classes. Grant funds will provide tech support to these seniors as and when needed. This project will also ensure that refugee and immigrant seniors receive COVID-19 kits that will include items such as masks, gloves, hand sanitizer, digital thermometers, non-perishable food items, and literature about staying safe in their native languages. This project will be in effect from October 27, 2020 through December 30th of 2020. And at this time, I'd like to welcome Angie Plummer, Executive Director of Community Refugee and Immigration Services, who is here to share a little bit more about this important project.
Good morning, Commissioners and staff. It's a privilege to be here this morning. As you know, Franklin County partners with Chris in many ways to help serve vulnerable refugees and immigrants. And this project in particular is focused on our senior refugee and immigrant population. We're really pleased to be working with Director Johns in this effort. Chris operates the Older Refugee and Immigrant Program with funding from the Franklin County Office on Aging and the Federal Office of Refugee Resettlement to engage with and meet the needs of older refugees in Franklin County through the use of bilingual case managers and through partnerships with other agencies focused on services to older adults. Older refugee and immigrants face challenges due to language and cultural barriers and are often isolated, vulnerable, and in many cases homebound due to physical and medical conditions. The ORI program has been instrumental in connecting these older adults to resources available locally. The program has also been a source of socialization to these older adults, as most of them do not drive and have the language capabilities to engage in other forms of socialization. The COVID-19 pandemic has forced all older adults to remain in their homes. The only form of socialization, meeting family members and other older adults from the community, has not been happening since the pandemic began. They do not have the skills or resources to connect with people outside their homes and are very isolated. They are the most vulnerable to the pandemic, and in an absence of any form of socialization, these older adults are at the risk of depression. This will further deteriorate their medical conditions. Access to telehealth is also challenged by the fact that many older adults do not have access to internet and computer devices. The ORI program is currently serving 158 older refugee and immigrant seniors. The vast majority are from our Bhutanese Nepali population. And we expect the number to reach at least 170 by the end of the calendar year. While case managers have been assisting clients with food supplies and other needs, the need to connect these older adults to others in the community, to connect them with their family and their case managers to provide emotional support is of significant need. This funding will help support that, to make that happen. We want our seniors to know that they're cared for in Franklin County, and we appreciate the support from the commissioners in making sure that they don't become isolated. They have access to telehealth and to support.
You know, I'm really glad we're able to do this for senior refugees in particular who are feeling isolated for lack of language skills or whatever it may be. It's really good that we have this program, and I'm really happy we're able to help in this time of the pandemic. So thank you for being here, Angie. As always, I'm really happy we're able to help out. And thank you to Senior Options staff, team. You always know when it's time to pitch in and be able to use some of the dollars that we have to be able to help out. Does anybody have any other questions?
Yeah, I do. A couple. One, let me just agree with you. I mean, this is just really good stuff. This is, it's not a large amount. We want it to be larger, but it's meaningful, and that's the most important thing. One, how are you going to determine who gets one of the? I think you said 30 Chromebooks or something. I can't remember how many, but how do you determine? Is it first come, first serve? Is there some type of need assessment set up? And then two, is there setup and support services that go with the equipment being set up and given to them?
Thank you for those questions, Commissioner Boyce. We've identified 50 participants, and 40 of them already have internet access, and so providing them with the actual devices will enable them to participate. We are providing hotspots for the 10 additional people who don't already have internet access with prepaid services. And what was the second part of your question?
Well, I think you did. You answered it. Yeah, you said, because it was the how are you going to determine who gets them, and
and the support. Yes.
And the support. Yeah.
We've seen. You know, we've all seen how the digital divide is such a challenge, whether it be for school children or older adults, and needing to connect the dots. It's not enough to just hand someone a device and say good luck. I know from spending hours with my own internet service provider over the weekend, it's a challenge to be able to get on and get access. And so we have the case managers who speak the languages of these seniors, and we have an IT person who will also be able to assist so that we can make sure they can hit the button, turn it on, and be connected.
Excellent. I don't have any more questions.
Okay, I'll move for passage of 73220.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Voting Commissioner Brown,
Yes.
Commissioner Boyce,
Yes.
Commissioner O'Grady.
Yes.
Resolution number 732-20 has been adopted. Resolution number
Thank you.
Resolution number 733-20. Resolution approving 62 contract extensions for senior options home care services in the amount of $30 million.
Good morning, Commissioners and County Administration. Becky Becker, Assistant Director of Operations. Today's resolution is the first and final extension of the Office on Aging Senior Options Home Care Services contract serving older adults in Franklin County. The original contract was awarded to 84 agencies on October 10th, 2017. This contract requires agencies to provide homemaking services, personal care, respite care, adult day services and transportation, emergency response systems, and home delivered meals. Of the original 84 contracted agencies, this resolution will extend contracts with 62 provider agencies. Of the 22 agencies not being renewed, 12 closed, sold, or merged their businesses. 7 have not provided any service during the contract period, and 3 were not renewed due to non-compliance with the contract. The breakdown of these 62 provider agencies, as reported on their Small and Emerging Business Forum, include 9 women business enterprises and 24 minority business enterprises. And we had 29 agencies that reported none. This is a 2-year contract extension that is in effect from November 1st, 2020 through October 31st, 2022, and includes a 2% rate increase for 45 agencies requesting the increase. The cost of this contract is $30 million over 2 years. Do you have any questions?
With the agencies that are going out of it, that went out of business, do you have enough capacity to help our seniors with what you're doing now?
For the most part, yes. We are struggling with the homemaking service. That is primarily due to the national crisis of worker shortage, competition for workers among funding sources, increase in demand for services for these healthcare workers due to the COVID-19. However, for the most part, we are maintaining all of the services. It takes a little longer for us to find a worker for, like I said, the homemaker service, but all other services are intact. The other service, adult daycare, as you know, has been on hold primarily.
Right.
That has just been released and they are operating, but it's at limited capacity at this point.
So that homemaker service, is that a national, it seems to be a national issue for home aids and things of that nature. It seems like that's a national trend, that there's a shortage. Is that something that we at the county ought to be looking at in terms of creating a career path for home health aides? We started something like that, and with COVID, we kind of put that on hold. But should we be focusing on that as a career path for people? Do you see that?
Yes, absolutely. We've had discussions about perhaps trying to partner with Job and Family Services around that. Also, we're we're going to be rebidding this contract and in 2 years. So we're going to have to look at doing some things very differently, adding some incentives to attract workers. Lots of changes will have to happen with that next contract, with that one service, the homemaking.
Yeah,
We seem to be able.
Go ahead.
I was going to say with personal care, we're able to meet, and respite, we're able to meet that need. It's just primarily the homemaking service. It's a tough job, and the pay is low. And like I said, we're going to have to be more creative with that next contract.
This is Kenneth Wilson, County Administrator. I do agree with what Ms. Becker said. Your point on the end is that we got to look at the wages that are paid when we issue the next RFP, because this work is so important, and we need to ensure that whom we contract with offer healthcare benefits, for example, and somewhere a living wage.
Absolutely.
And that will cost us more as far as the levy is concerned, but it's worth it. I think otherwise we're going to have high turnover, and our seniors aren't going to get the quality of service that they deserve. So let's make sure that we work together, and when this comes up to be rebid.
Absolutely.
Well, I think it's a career that historically has not paid well, and I think the benefits are needing to be enhanced, and I think we need to do something to make sure that we can advocate for higher wages and benefits as we look to whatever we do to create a career track. If we're working with Columbus State or whoever has a career path in that arena, we need to make sure we're creating a career path that's sustainable with sustainable wages and benefits.
May I speak, Madam Commissioner? Just really quick, and thank you, Ms. Becker, for sharing that. I want to make sure that everyone knows that through the WIOA dollars and the career track, as you're utilizing workforce dollars, particularly for homemaking services, it is one that has been taken basically off of the menu of opportunities due to the fact, to Ms. Becker's point, of the livable wages. Many times when you're utilizing those workforce dollars, you have to utilize them in a way where it puts a person on a trajectory for sustainable wages. And because that is not one of the industries, it is not one of the ones that we identify primarily putting someone on a career track.
Right, except it's such a need for having these professionals in homes, and we need these people to have some measure of training. And so, we've got to ensure that we get them up to a livable wage that makes sense. So it's a need that's out there. We've got to make sure we get them to a livable wage situation.
When we talk about the Rise Together poverty blueprint, we got to see this play out in those industries where we contract out for staff. We got to try to figure that out because we have a challenge on both ends of the spectrum for our small children, early childhood learning.
Absolutely, it's the same thing.
Are underpaid, and then on the end of the spectrum, those that provide valuable care to our seniors are not paid properly.
Yeah, it's the same thing at both ends, and the pay structure doesn't support us spending the money to develop those tracks, but they're both essential workers that we have to support. We'll have to figure it out. This is not the time to do that, but I do think it's worth us figuring it out.
And absolutely, with the COVID crisis, we have the hospital networks providing large sign-on bonuses, which is, they're recruiting a lot of these workers because they can
Sure.
pay better and offer these sign bonuses. And COVID is adding to that right now.
Oh, I know. And they've got shortages already in the hospitals. I get it. I know. I understand. So we're going to have to figure it out. Now is not the moment to do that, but I do think we do have to figure it out. I appreciate working with.
Becky, Director Johns, I'm not sure when is the levy up? We just passed it. Seems like in 18, maybe 17. When is the levy up? I think it was a 5-year levy, was it not?
Right, 2022.
2022.
Yes.
Okay, so we must have passed it in 17, and now it's
Right.
back up.
Right.
22. Okay.
Now
All right.
we can bid it early. We could bid it into 2021 if we want. That's just something to keep in mind.
Well, you'll have to have that conversation with the levy review committee if it's necessary. If for some reason you need to consider that, or if that's something that needs to be put on the table. The levy review committees clearly. I mean, we have obviously a fantastic levy review. They do a great job.
Yeah.
I'm sure that you can have those conversations with Director Toleric in the meantime, if you feel that's necessary, and you can bring that before him, and he can then raise it with the levy review committee.
Any other questions or comments? I'll move for passage of 73320.
Second.
Moved and seconded, voting Commissioner Brown,
Yes.
Commissioner Boyce,
Yes.
Commissioner O'Grady.
Yes.
Resolution number 733-20 has been adopted.
Good conversation, guys. Economic development.
Thank you.
Thanks. Economic development and planning.
Resolution number 734-20, review of petition to annex 1.0 acres more or less from Jackson Township to the city of Grove City, case number ANX-24-20.
Good morning, Commissioners. Jenny Snap, Assistant Director, Economic Development and Planning. We have a number of resolutions to take you through this morning. I'll start out with the two annexations. This resolution is to consider an expedited Type 2 annexation petition of 1 acre from Jackson Township to the city of Grove City. The area to be annexed includes property located at 3630 London Groveport Road and 3640 London Groveport Road, which is north of London Groveport, west of I-71, south of Orders Road, and east of Harrisburg Pike. Petition was filed by agent and attorney Christopher Montgomery of Frost Brown Todd LLC, who is in attendance if you have any question, on behalf of the owner, the Solid Waste Authority of Central Ohio. 76% of the site's perimeter is contiguous with the city of Grove City, and the city passed resolution number CR-39-20 on October 5th, 2020, indicating the services that will be provided once the annexation is approved, and a statement regarding incompatible land uses in the zoning buffer. Petition meets all statutory requirements outlined in section 709.021 of the Ohio Revised Code, and pending any questions, we request your approval.
Hey, I do have a question. Given that I'm on the SWACO board, am I allowed to vote on this? Is there a prosecutor's office here?
You're not on the SWACO board. I am.
Oh, you're on it. Okay. Yeah. I forgot about that. I got removed. I forgot. Yeah, I'm losing my mind. All right.
You'll be on it next year.
Okay, but I'm curious. If you're on it, can you vote?
Where is our?
I believe Harold's on this morning.
Commissioner, good morning, Commissioners. There is not actually a conflict here because you were a statutory member, and there is, unless there is some personal pecuniary gain, the fact that you're a statutory member of the board would accept you from what would ordinarily, you're right, potentially be a conflict.
And the statutory reference means that there is a legislative authority of appointment to the board to its enabling,
correct,
legislation, so that it embedded in its creation was an appointment by the county.
That
not
is
commissioner.
correct.
Okay.
That's correct. Sorry, Commissioner, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Yeah, so I'm just using this for reference, and I'm just using it for reference on any boards that we're on. So okay, but if we're on a board though, but that's not a part of the statutory appointment process, then we are required to abstain.
Then you may have a requirement to abstain. And just to be clear, what we're really looking at in this situation would be that there's no personal pecuniary gain. So even though you're a statutory member, if for some reason Commissioner O'Grady owned a piece of that property and would see a financial gain, that still would present a potential problem under Ohio's ethics laws. But in this instance, I'm presuming Commissioner O'Grady doesn't own any of the property since it's owned by SWACO. So there's not any personal gain to Commissioner O'Grady, and the statutory exception would allow for this vote.
Gotcha. Yeah, this is one of those ones we just rotate around every year. I gotcha.
I have very little property and none of it is in Jackson Township. All right. So, Mr. Montgomery, do you have anything that you need to add to this before we take a vote?
Good morning, Commissioners. It's a pleasure to be here. I really don't have anything to add. This is a property that is surrounded by other property that SWACO owns that is also in the city of Grove City. And it's still in the conceptual phase, but SWACO is hopeful to include this in a planned industrial park at some point down the road. So this is just in preparation of those potential plans. And that is all.
Great.
I'll move for approval of 73420.
Second.
Moved and seconded, voting Commissioner Brown,
Yes.
Commissioner Boyce,
Yes.
Commissioner O'Grady.
Yes.
Resolution number 734-20 has been adopted.
Commissioner Boyce, you have now raised the most controversial thing that I've been involved with at SWACO in a number of years.
That's okay.
I've been trying to keep my head low down there for a long time. Thanks.
Yeah. I forgot I wasn't on the board because I had my staff was my appointee, so I was never. They were there most of the time, but got it. Yeah, I forgot it's the rotating chair thing.
I'm just teasing.
No, you're not.
All right. We have another annexation.
Resolution number 735-20, review of petition to annex 9.83 acres, more or less, from Jackson Township to the city of Grove City, case number ANX-25-20.
Commissioners, this resolution is to consider an expedited type 2 annexation petition of 9.83 acres from Jackson Township to the city of Grove City. The area to be annexed includes property located at 1255 Stringtown Road. That's south of Stringtown, west of Jackson Pike, north of White Road, and east of Interstate 71. Petition was filed by agent and attorney Casey B. Wall of Wall Law, LLC, who is in attendance if you have any questions, on behalf of the owner, the Reorganized Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. 50% of the site's perimeter is contiguous with the city of Grove City, and the city passed resolution number CR-40-20 on October 5th, 2020, indicating the services that will be provided once the annexation is approved, and a statement regarding incompatible land uses in the zoning buffer. The petition meets all statutory requirements outlined in section 709.021 of the Ohio Revised Code, and pending any questions, we request your approval.
Attorney Wall, do you have anything you'd like to add?
I don't have anything further to add unless you've got any questions. They're just annexing for hookup to utility services after Stringtown Road was completely redone.
Okay.
Any questions? Okay, I will move approval of 73520.
Second.
Moved and seconded, voting Commissioner Brown,
Yes.
Commissioner Boyce,
Yes.
Commissioner O'Grady.
Yes.
Resolution number 735-20 has been adopted. Resolution number 736-20. Resolution authorizing the Board of Franklin County Commissioners to sign the attached discharge of mortgage instrument for Shirley Yoakum at 2486 Rosedale Avenue, Columbus, Ohio, 43223.
Good morning, Commissioners. Madison Andrews, the Economic Development and Planning Admin Assistant. This property owner received a home loan for $7,629.82. They've met all program requirements and all property taxes are current. And we're just asking that you sign the discharge of mortgage instrument.
I'll move approval of 736-20.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Voting Commissioner Brown,
Yes.
Commissioner Boyce,
Yes.
Commissioner O'Grady.
Yes.
Resolution number 736-20 has been adopted. Resolution number 737-20. Resolution authorizing the Board of Franklin County Commissioners to sign the attached discharge of mortgage instrument for Rebecca Velli at 7417 Donald Avenue, Reynoldsburg, Ohio, 43068.
This property owner received a home loan of $15,000. They've met all program requirements and all property taxes are current. So we're just asking that you sign the discharge of mortgage instrument.
Move approval of 737-20.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Voting Commissioner Brown,
Yes.
Commissioner Boyce,
Yes.
Commissioner O'Grady.
Yes.
Resolution number 737-20 has been adopted. Resolution number 738-20. Resolution authorizing the Board of Franklin County Commissioners to sign the attached discharge of mortgage instrument for Michael A. Sweeney at 5232 Dunlow Place, Columbus, Ohio, 43232.
This property owner received a home loan of $6,000. They've met all of our program requirements and all the property taxes are current. So we ask that you sign the discharge of mortgage instrument.
Move approval of 738-20.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Voting Commissioner Brown,
Yes.
Commissioner Boyce,
Yes.
Commissioner O'Grady.
Yes.
Resolution number 738-20 has been adopted. Resolution number 739-20. Resolution authorizing the Board of Franklin County Commissioners to sign the attached discharge of mortgage instrument for Millie Rogers at 4148 Elburn Avenue, Columbus, Ohio, 43213.
This property owner received a home loan of $4,660. They've met all of our program requirements and all the taxes are current on the property. So I ask that you sign the discharge of mortgage instrument.
Move approval of 739-20.
I'll second, but I think for some reason that one is not showing up in my packet. I don't know if that's an issue. I don't see it. Dean, is it on there?
I have it, Commissioner, and I'm happy to forward it to you separately.
No, I think it's fine. There's not anything heavy, but yeah, for some reason it's not. Mine skips from 738 to 740.
The top of the page.
Yeah, you talking about the actual legislation, or you talking about the general sheet? It's not that big a deal. I just want to make sure it wasn't an issue because it was. I follow along on my iPad and it's just not in my box for some reason. It's not showing up anyways. So no big deal.
739-40.
No, it just skips to 740, 738, and then to 740.
Oh.
So I don't know.
I'll look into it for you, and
no big deal. No big deal. Yeah, no big deal.
It's like trip you up, Dean. It's there. Or he's just.
I promise I'm not trying to.
Probably, yeah. Probably, this is it's one of those days, man. Just keep going. It's I don't even know why I brought it up. So just second.
I have to be honest. I'm not sure where we're at. Commissioner Brown, did you move?
She moved. I seconded.
There we go. Moved and seconded. Voting Commissioner Brown.
Yes.
Commissioner Boyce.
Yes.
Commissioner O'Grady.
Yes.
Resolution number 739-20 has been adopted. Always trying to get me.
Yep. He just likes to give you a hard time.
Resolution
He
number.
likes Do that. Yeah.
No, I don't. No, I don't. That's not true. I was an
Resolution
easy
number-
going one here. What are you talking about?
How'd you know which he I meant?
Because I know. I just, I just
Oh.
guess. Just guess it. Just guess it.
Resolution number 740-20. Resolution authorizing the Board of Franklin County Commissioners to sign the attached discharge of mortgage instrument for Bradley Edwards at 1150 Hillside Avenue, Harrisburg, Ohio, 43126.
This property owner received a home loan of $5,537. They've met all of our program requirements and the taxes on the property are current. So I'm just asking that you sign the discharge of mortgage instrument.
I'll move for passage of 740-20.
Second.
Moved and seconded voting. Commissioner Brown,
Yes.
Commissioner Boyce,
Yes.
Commissioner O'Grady.
Yes.
Resolution number 740-20 has been adopted. Resolution number 741-20. Resolution authorizing the Board of Franklin County Commissioners to sign the attached discharge of mortgage instrument for Melissa Miller at 5285 Norton Road, Pleasant Township, Franklin County, Ohio, 43123.
This property owner received a home loan of $3,489. They've met all of our program requirements and the property taxes are current. So I ask that you sign the discharge of mortgage.
Move for passage of 741-20.
Second.
Moved and seconded voting. Commissioner Brown,
Yes.
Commissioner Boyce,
Yes.
Commissioner O'Grady.
Yes.
Resolution number 741-20 has been adopted.
Thank you.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Dennis.
Thank
Jenny.
you.
Job and Family Services.
Resolution number 742-20. Resolution modifying and expanding the prevention PRC Plus rental assistance program.
Waiting for Bart to show up.
Good morning, Commissioners. Joy Bivens, Deputy County Administrator. I'm going to do this resolution because we feel that this is one of the resolutions that not just apply to customer base at Job and Family Services, but our entire HHS family base. Commissioners, back in May, you allocated $1.5 million in CARES Act funds to expand our Prevention, Retention, and Contingency Fund, which we call PRC, program that allows us to provide rental assistance to more families. These funds were provided in addition to the funds you allocated to Impact to support the HOPE Fund, Housing Fund, excuse me. Our PRC Plus rental assistance program was originally intended to provide assistance to families up to 300% of the federal poverty level. That's about $5,400 a month for a family of three, who otherwise would not qualify under our standard PRC program. However, since that launch, we have found that the vast majority of families that have applied for rental assistance have qualified under the standard PRC income guidelines, which is below the federal guideline of 165 FPL, which is about $1,750 a month for a family of three. And so their assistance payments have been paid out from our TANF PRC funds. This is very confusing, but it'll make sense in a minute. These changes will provide us the flexibility to pay rental assistance for all eligible low-income families up to 300% FPL from those CARES Act funds. They also provide us with the flexibility to cover an additional month, which we are asking you to consider. So up to 2 months total, the delinquent month and the subsequent one, add up to $1,500 per month. So basically, we're asking to not just pay the delinquent month, but the month going forward. And if I could, Commissioners, I want to emphasize that there are no changes to the application process for families. Families must consist of one minor child in the home or a pregnant mother in the home. The income threshold for PRC Plus rental assistance is up to 300% FPL, which is about $5,400 a month for a family of three. PRC emergency assistance is up to 165 FPL, which is about $1,750 a month for a family of three. This will pay for mortgage, utilities, and car repairs. The application process can be downloaded at jfs.franklincountyohio.gov/PRC. This is on the website for the Commissioners, Job and Family Services, and we've also sent it out to our other community partners. Families can submit applications via mail, email, fax, or at one of the Franklin County Job and Family Services Opportunity Centers. I also want to make mention, Commissioners, of all the applications received, some of the zip code hotspots that we're seeing in the highest zip codes. 43232, which is southeast of the Eastland area, we've received about 250 applications. 43207, which is the south side, about 187. 43229, which is our Morris Road, is 175. And 43213, which is the Whitehall area. There are other areas as well, but these are some of the top hotspot areas we're receiving applications from. I would like to also make mention, lastly, that this program supports goal number 6 of the blueprint, enabling more families at or near poverty to afford quality housing and reducing percentage of housing costs and burden on families. Pending any questions, I will ask for your approval of this resolution.
So I have a question about what residents will notice. Will they know the difference when they contact you or contact JFS, what they're applying for, whether it's PRC, PRC plus? Will they know the difference, and what will they notice?
So, Commissioner, it's on the onus of our staff. So if a family applies, it is up to our staff to determine what they were eligible for. So even if they apply for the PRC plus and are eligible for PRC, it is on our staff to make that determination based on the institutional knowledge that we have. We're not putting that burden on the family when they apply.
And Director, if I can just jump in, the application is the same as our PRC application. So it's one application.
Yep. But if somebody calls, and they need assistance, and they're calling for PRC, and they know PRC, because that's known in the community, how would they know that they can get PRC plus? And that, you're saying that's up to the staff?
It is up to our staff to make that determination when a person calls that we're going to screen them for both PRC and PRC plus. Regardless of what comes out of their mouth, we're going to still do our due diligence. And what we're saying, Commissioners, is, because we know there's a lot of questions, well, what if I applied already, or what if this, or what if that? We're asking people, just apply. Just go ahead and just apply, because what we want to make sure is that not only we expense the funds, but the people who are eligible may hold off and not apply within a timely manner. And once these dollars are gone, they're gone. So we're going to make sure that everyone applies. And it is on our staff to do that screening and assessment to see what pot of money they will qualify for.
Okay.
The public facing piece of this doesn't change. Nobody in the public's got to do anything different than they've ever done before. Nobody needs to worry about any changes. They're just applying for what they normally apply for.
Right.
Good.
How long will those funds last, you think? Additional funds?
So, Commissioner, if you remember when COVID first started, you all approved dollars for 3,000 families received up to $500 immediately once COVID hit. We put our video out, I think, on a Tuesday. We had to take that video down by Thursday. Mm-hmm. So we don't know, based on the dollars and what the delinquencies are. We're just, again, it's hard to project at this moment, but there are other resources that people are utilizing through our community partners. But we do know that some of those community partners have been on hold because their dollars froze. So we just, honestly, Commissioner, we just really don't know. It's based on need.
Okay.
Any further comments or questions? Okay, I will move approval of 74220.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Voting, Commissioner Brown?
Yes.
Commissioner Boyce?
Yes.
Commissioner O'Grady?
Yes.
Resolution number 742-20 has been adopted.
Thank you.
Thanks. You.
Community partnerships.
Resolution number 743-20. Resolution authorizing grant agreements related to related to the COVID-19 pandemic in the amount of $771,018.
Good morning, Commissioners. Dana McCrary, Administrator for Community Partnerships. This resolution will allow us to contract with, to enter into grant agreements with 3 extremely worthwhile organizations. The first being the Franklin County Convention Facilities Authority, which operates the Greater Columbus Convention Center and Nationwide Arena. They have been particularly hard hit in the wake of this COVID-19 pandemic. We know that they have seen, due to cancellations of events and things of that nature, they've seen more than $200 million in direct visitor income. So we definitely want to support that organization as they are reeling from those revenue losses. And the second organization that this resolution will support is the Columbus Zoo and Aquarium, and they are absolutely a gem here in Central Ohio, an organization with national recognition because of its exhibits and leadership. And the third, and I might say as well that as of August, the zoo has seen approximately $18 million in revenue losses because of canceled fundraisers, events, and admissions. Because when we saw the onset of the pandemic, the Columbus Zoo and Aquarium had to remain closed for 3 months. So this funding certainly will support them in recouping some of their revenue losses. And the third organization is Big Brothers Big Sisters of Central Ohio. And that organization, as we know, is so important because young people, particularly right now, the young people that are supported through mentorship, with Big Brothers Big Sisters, are the children really who are often left behind. Brown and Black children who need that extra person. They need that extra relationship, someone to check in on them, particularly because children are not in school and they are not being seen by adults who are just in their corner. So it's very meaningful that we are able to support these organizations and their revenue losses in the wake of this pandemic. We are very pleased this morning to welcome Don Brown. He is with the Franklin County Convention Facilities Authority, and he can speak to what this resolution will be able to do for them.
Thank you, Dana.
You're welcome.
Commissioners, the Convention Facilities Authority appreciates your continued support of our convention facilities in the community. As Dana mentioned, unfortunately, over $221 million of direct visitor spending has been lost since the onset of COVID. That impacts a lot of small businesses, a lot of restaurants, a lot of bars, a lot of hotels, a lot of transportation companies. It affects a wide segment of our small business and mid-sized business community here. It's directly impacted the convention center because we've lost over $16 million worth of income to the convention center from the 221 events that have canceled since March. Similar impact on the arena. With your support, we hope to upgrade air filtration systems, to install walk-through body temperature scanners, detectors, and to install touchless parking ticket upgrades to make the visitor experience as safe and clean as possible. We hope to reopen
responsibly and safely, and to make as many of the surfaces and handles and handrails in our system as sanitized and as disinfected as possible. We know from our customer advisory council that groups are anxious to return to live events, and that they will be looking for safe and clean and hygienic facilities to do that. So we appreciate your support and being able to get ready for the return of live events in our convention facilities.
Thank you. Commissioners, if there are no questions, I would respectfully request the approval of this resolution.
I have a few questions. Commissioner O'Grady, if I could proceed.
Please.
Thank you. Don, how much, good to see you, first of all, and thanks for all you're doing with the Convention and Visitors Bureau. A couple of questions. One, how much did you request in terms of funding from this particular pot? And two, how are where does the hotel stand in terms of, particularly the Hilton, in terms of performance and sort of its occupancy rate?
Thanks for your greeting, Commissioner Boyce. It's good to see you as well. We estimate our total spending requirements, our total investment to make the convention center and the arena ready for live events again is about $5 million. So your $500,000 investment will get us started. We're looking for us, and we hope to secure a matching investment from the city. And if that's approved, that would get us up to $1 million, or about 20% of the total investment we feel we need to make our facility safe and ready.
What did you request from the county, though? Did you request 500,000?
We did.
Okay.
The hotel community, the hotels are averaging around 30% occupancy across Franklin County, but there's a difference. The limited service hotels along the interstates are probably doing 40 or 50% occupancy or better, but the large big box hotels in the downtown properties are probably averaging 20% or less, and they're struggling to stay open. Some of them are closed and still haven't reopened, and it will take the return of group conventions, trade shows, meetings, in order for those big box hotels, those full service hotels like the Hilton, like the Hyatt, like the Crown, like the Westin, and like the Renaissance, to get back to the 60-70% occupancy
Sure.
that they were experiencing pre-COVID.
Sure. I mean, I guess
the industry expects that it will take 4 years for the full-size hotel market to recover.
Yeah. I mean, this may not be the time to get into this. And so if it's not, you don't have these numbers in front of you, that's okay. We can connect offline and maybe have another conversation. But, I'm curious as to the financial model for the hotel as it relates to the debt service. If you're I'm sure the model does not account for a 20% occupancy rate or even a 30% occupancy rate. And so there's got to be I would assume some type of reserve that you're digging into. And then, when you dig into it so long, there's probably some other trigger for other type of resources. And so I'd be curious as to where we stand in the model. Again, if you don't have it right now, that's totally okay. That is not going to change my effect of this. But
general response is this, Commissioner. Fortunately, we maintained, we had about 2.5 to 3 years of debt service cash in reserve. So we're able to weather a full 2.5 years at 20% occupancy. I hope it doesn't come to that, but we're able to withstand that and still meet our debt service obligations because of the cash reserves.
But yeah, and that's important to know, but it's also important to know that you're using the reserves. And so that has an implication too. And so I just want to kind of dig into that a little bit. Again, we don't have to do it now, but even the use of the reserve implies certain things, and we just need to be thoughtful about it and maybe think about it. And you know, there are some projections for this COVID-19 economic recovery, you know, to be 3 or 4 years out, you know, the impact. And so, you know, I don't know how that reconciles with, you know, once we get visitors going back again and the vaccine exists and all of that. You know, I think there's a sort of plan for the worst and hope for the best, or whatever, how that, you know, that how that saying goes. You hope for the best, but plan for the worst. And so I'm curious as to what that means if, you know, as we dig into those cash reserves that you referenced, what that could imply down the road if it stretches out even past the 2 or 3 years worth of reserve that you've got, and what that means for Franklin County.
The industry forecasts that live events will return, that groups will seek out conventions and trade shows in the second half of 21, second half of next year. So we expect to that the properties will be on a pay-go basis in the second half of next year, and we can begin to rebuild reserves from that point forward. But that it will take a full 4 or 5 year cycle to return to the 70-75% occupancy levels that hotels were experiencing pre-COVID.
Yeah, thanks. You know, let's have another conversation about this, because I want to dig into that financial structure a little more. I've got some other questions, but I think Commissioner Brown might have wanted to chime in on this too. So.
Well, I was concerned about the other businesses in the neighborhood where you're located, which is the Short North area. How are they? I know how they're doing right now, which is not doing real well unless they've got an online presence, in which case they might be doing a little better. But without the conventions in the neighborhood, it's pretty tough for them to make it. The restaurants and the stores in the neighborhood in which I reside and which the convention center is located, if business isn't going to start being booked until second half of 21, is the Short North business community thinking of how the business community is going to survive that length of time and how they're going to do in the meantime?
Commissioner Brown, it's a tough time for us. It's especially tough time for those restaurants and galleries and shops in the Short North District and the Arena District. That $221 million in direct visitor spending impacts all of those businesses, as well as the hotels and transportation companies. Betsy Pandora at the Short North Improvement District and the gallery owners have told me several times that their models show that 50% of their foot traffic comes from convention goers and people that are here for a convention or trade show. So if convention and trade shows don't reopen until the second half of next year, that means that those businesses, those galleries, those restaurants are missing 50% of their foot traffic. Mm-hmm. And so Experience Columbus has focused on shifted its focus on to try and draw residential residents of Franklin County to the short north and to the Arena District and so forth to help support those restaurants and galleries and other shopping opportunities in our community.
Yeah, it's been tough. I know. Thank you, Don.
Thank you, Commissioner.
And I'll just add too that a lot of the forecasts, we just don't know where we're coming out of this, and I think we're being hopeful about the second quarter of next year, but the economy impact will be much longer and will take a much greater time. And so again, I'm thinking from I'm hope for the best, but plan for the worst scenario. And I really want to understand what that looks like, worst case scenario. And I just want to have a conversation, learn more about it. And I don't know enough about the structure that the hotel is under to have a real opinion about it. But that's what I'm saying. Maybe we can connect maybe sometime in the next few weeks.
Be happy to have that conversation in the next few weeks, Commissioner.
That'd be great. And if I could go back, Commissioner O'Grady, to Dana McCreary. Is that okay? Thank you. I think this line of question is for you, Dana, and for Ken as well, for Ken Wilson as well. What is the criteria we've been using to make recommendations to the board with regards to awards of CARES Act dollars? And let me be frank about where I'm going with this. I know for a fact that Big Brothers and Big Sisters requested a more amount of money, and were only funded at 50% of their request or something around that. And it concerns me. I requested that they get much more funding, and for two main reasons. One, as Ms. McCurry pointed out so eloquently earlier, this is really about kids who are at risk and kids who are more at risk during a global pandemic. Research shows that suicide rates are highest amongst teens up to the age of 30. Research shows that the stress level from being out of school, the pandemic, and so forth, is impacting our young people at a greater rate than much of the rest of the population. And as I think about Big Brothers, Big Sisters, it's an area where even once we come out of the pandemic, this is an area, because of all of the unknown and the changes that these young people are going through, this is an area that we don't want to get even further behind on. And so I'm having trouble understanding what the formula is for your recommendation to the Board of Commissioners. This resolution, I support it, but I don't support the idea that we're only giving 50% of our funds to Big Brothers, Big Sisters. And as I look at the list of the other agencies that we fund, much of them were funded at 100%. Much of them were funded at more than 50%. And so my criteria as a commissioner would be anything that affects children, seniors, single moms would be top priority in this kind of environment and should get the sort of higher considerations of funding. No offense to the, I'm supportive of what the Convention and Visitors Bureau is getting at their request, but to give them 100% and to not give Big Brothers, Big Sisters 100%, I take issue with. And I go down the list of the other agencies that receive that, and it's a red flag to me. And so help me understand what your criteria is for recommending only 50% to an agency that is set up to serve our most vulnerable kids on a normal basis. But given that we're in a global pandemic, it's heightened substantially. And so why would we fund them at a 50% rate when we know, and of all of our blueprint work, they're at the core of all of that work, of everything we do. So I need you to help me understand it, because I'd be voting no on this resolution for that reason, except for the fact I don't want to hold up money to these other agencies. Not that my no vote would mean anything, but I support what the Convention and Visitors Bureau is getting, but not in the instead of Big Brothers Big Sisters.
Commissioner President O'Grady, Commissioner Boyce, Commissioner Brown, county administration certainly holds these priorities and these values in everything we do when we bring these recommendations forward to you all. And as county administrator, it's not a day that goes by that I don't think about the Rise Together Poverty Blueprint and look at how we direct the county's available resources towards those ends. Upon receipt of the coronavirus relief fund dollars, the $76 million that we received, we've been trying to use that in the most effective way possible. And we've been trying to leverage as many relationships as we can by collaborating with the city of Columbus, because they received an allocation as well of 150 some odd million to try to have the greatest community impact as we partnered on childcare, as we partnered on small business relief, as we partnered for the nonprofit resiliency fund. Unfortunately, as you know, Big Brothers Big Sisters didn't get the application in to be reviewed under the criteria for the county city resiliency fund. But given how important their work is, this recommendation is brought here today at any rate at 50% of that amount. And we've been encouraging our partners again to seek where they can assistance from both the city and the county. Big Brothers Big Sisters, where we are recommending this at, is based on the criteria, legislative criteria, but it was agreed to criteria as the city and the county staffs and other appointees that were made effectively looked at the grant amount. So generally, looking at grants that were awarded under the 20.6 million, our community partnerships administrator calculated and forwarded it to me that 60% of those agencies received 62% of their ask. 60% of the total received 62% of what they asked for. And if you look at a lot of the agencies that were funded at small amounts, particularly with the 5 million plus that we contributed, those were smaller amounts allocated to organizations that hadn't been able to participate before. They were smaller grant amounts. And if I'm wrong, Dana lives and sleeps these numbers since March. But that has been the case with where we reached out to many small organizations for some grant amounts less than $20,000 in some cases, but were very valuable. And also I'll point out that Big Brothers Big Sisters is a big partner of ours, and it's going to take us to use all our available pools of dollars. For example, last week through our Office of Justice Policy and Programs, we had a grant to support their work. And next week on the third, we have a $180,000 agreement through Job and Family Services to support the youth mentoring and academic support program, and that's vital. So rest assured that we're trying to use all of our resources that are at our disposal. That's what makes it so important that another round of CARES Act dollars are provided, and hopefully after next week, we'll see Congress step up and make that happen. Also, Commissioner Boyce, as you talked about yesterday, even though there's been an announcement of a rush to spend $400+ million in state CARES Act dollars to be passed down, there's still a reported about almost 500 million, it needs to come down to the local level. That's being held at the state of Ohio of their allocation.
Yeah, I mean, thanks for that, Administrator. Couple of things, if I might. One, I mean, we start with the state. You know me, I have just no patience with the state. And certainly I'm not going to hang my hat on serving the residents of Franklin County on what the state of Ohio does. You know, they had their money since April, it's November, and they're just meeting to allocate that money out. They have no credibility with me. Let me start there. Secondly, they have no credibility with me with regards to CARES Act funds. Secondly, you know, you had mentioned that, you know, Big Brothers, Big Sisters didn't get their application in. They didn't submit an application, and I was in the loop on this because they came to me about it because they were given guidance that because they received a PPP loan, they wouldn't qualify. Now, that may have come from the city of Columbus and how they were looking at certain elements of the criteria, but this is why I didn't want to do the partnership with Columbus in the first place. If you remember, I wanted Franklin County to do its funds on its own, not in partnership with Columbus, for these types of reasons where communication can get off-centered. And so, but even still, that's neither here nor there. I see you got staff chomping at the bits to want to chime in here. But here's my point that I want everybody to understand. I really don't care about deadlines and applications and all of that. What's important to me are the children that they serve. And so for me, when I think of whether or not the Board of Commissioners, who I just want to remind everybody, you're making the recommendations, the commissioners make the decisions. And so from my standpoint, your recommendation, what I'm saying is I disagree with your recommendation, that in my decision-making process, my priorities is very simple. Where is the need and who is most vulnerable for us to provide that need? And so when I see, you know, and again, no offense to the convention and Bridget, I don't mean to keep bringing you in on this, Don. I think you all do tremendous work. I give you A+. I'm serious about that. But to fund them at 100% and to fund a vulnerable youth serving agency at 50% as a penalty because they didn't get an application in because of the guidance that was given in or whatever the reason was. To me, at the heart of it is the work that we're doing to support those families and those kids. That's what the blueprint is all about. That's what our work in 2018 that we started is all about. It's not about deadlines and guidelines and rules and all that. It's about changing the narrative on the people who are most vulnerable. And so if we want to get into penalties, every week we get here, I'll point out in what legislation we're doing where somebody didn't meet a deadline or something wasn't met from a guideline or something, you know, we can do what we want to do as it relates to who needs the resources the most. And so I put that out there because I strongly disagree with funding them at 50% as a penalty, because that might be their director may have made the choice not to respond to the funds because of the application because of the guidance that was given. But at the end of the day, it's about the children they're serving. It's about it's about the suicide rates that we're seeing. It's about the mental health challenges that we're seeing. It's about, all of disruption that these young people are facing and ensuring that there's a foundation of recovery as we go forward. So, I hope you're not going to respond to the point where you're making me vote no on this legislation. But at the same time, I need to be clear that, it's the commissioners that make the decision. You're making a recommendation. And so we can change that. And if there's a will for increased funding and there's still additional dollars left, which I believe there are, then I think they should be funded at 100% in the sake of the children that they serve.
Commissioner Boyce, if I may, Dana McCrary, Administrator for Community Partnerships. Your point is well taken. And I will say that in terms of vetting organizations for funding, the first thing we look at is, are the expenses allowable? So absolutely, the Big Brothers, Big Sisters organization submitted
Dana, if you can hear me.
In an application that was lost because, I'm sorry?
You froze up, so we didn't get a lot of that.
I'm sorry. Okay. So I would say that in terms of Big Brothers, Big Sisters, or any of the CARES Act applications that I reviewed outside of the Resilience Initiative, the first thing I looked at is whether or not the request was it was appropriate. For example, was it allowable? So I would say they absolutely came forward with an application requesting funds to replace revenue that was lost due to canceled fundraisers, revenue that they would have recouped through the rent of their camp facilities. And in terms of the lens, I want you to understand, and please be clear and know my heart, because I might have criteria and we have rules and regulations. However, at the end of every day, I'm an African-American woman. I'm a mother. I'm thinking about every day my mother who raised 6 children, not always with my father on the same page. So I bring that lived experience. And with regards to seniors, the first half of my career was spent in aging services. So I bring all of that to the table. And I think that I try to use a lens of parity as well, not trying to hold back any organizations. So we may disagree with how we've come to where we are today, but I take your point, and I want you to know that, I just want to reiterate the point that I am coming with recommendations, and I'm facilitating this process on behalf of the Board of Commissioners, but at the end of every day, the commissioners are the ones who decide what will happen. I know that you don't defer that responsibility.
That's right.
So that's all that I would add there.
Okay. And I would just say, I didn't mean to imply that this recommendation that's before you today reflects a penalty being placed upon Big Brothers, Big Sisters. There is no ill intent related to the action that led up to the request that's before you for a vote today. It's just a reflection of trying to have some consistency as we look at each request that comes in from so many vital organizations that serve all of the 13 goals of the poverty blueprint that laid out in the 120 action steps. The difficult part of my job, but I love it, is that I can't bring a recommendation to you at often that would be 100% of what all of the important agencies bring forward for different programs. It don't reflect 100% all the time, even though if we had indefinite resources, we most certainly would try to do that. So sometimes it might not, I might pick the wrong organization over the other, but you all appointed me to do this job, and that's why I bring these recommendations forward. And, ultimately, I'm the one held responsible. The staff does a great job, as was laid out, trying to make the best decisions as it relates to what comes forward. But ultimately,
I don't deny you guys do a great job, and you're thoughtful. And Dana, I think you are a very thoughtful, and you put a lot of effort into it. And so don't mistake my comments to be personal or directly related to you. I just disagree with the recommendation, and I disagree with the basis to which the recommendation is being made. And quite frankly, I don't think we need to hold everybody hostage here to continue this. I would just appeal to my colleagues that it's our decision at the end of the day. This is a recommendation, and there are 3 people on all the globe that actually make this decision, and it's us. And I would appeal. You don't have to do it in this legislation. We don't have to hold this up to do that. But I would appeal that reconsider and give big brothers, big sisters additional funding. I know what they do to kids. I know, as Dana talked about, I know what it's like to be one of those kids and need that kind of support and help. In this environment, I can't even imagine what those kids are dealing with and going through. And I just think that if we've got the resources, then we should share it with them and try to make sure that those kids are made whole in this pandemic best we can. That's
Commissioner Boyce, I hate to interrupt, but here's what I would like to say and ask if we can do. I think there were many organizations that do great work in the community that got left out. What I'd like to suggest is that we go forward with this resolution as is, and then take a look at those organizations that got vetted through the process that we went through. And if we have extra money from the pandemic money, let us go through and see which of those organizations, including this one that we're discussing now, and see if we can come to some agreement among the three commissioners how to make sure that we can fulfill the mission of this board, which is to help those who best need the help and do what makes sense to meet the goals of the blueprint in the best possible way. And make sure that we work with Dana and Ken and get that money out as quickly as possible. But I would rather pass this resolution today and get the money to the organization so they can start the work that they're waiting for the money to do.
So, Commissioner Boyce, I would tell you one, I agree with you about Big Brothers Big Sisters. I was a big brother at a point long ago.
I knew that.
But I would also say that the community partnership program, I have a love-hate relationship with the community partnership program because it's a fantastic program. I love it because of what we can do and the impact that we can make in the community with it. The reason that it drives me crazy is because there's never enough money for all the things that we want to do in the community and the impacts that we want to make. And we have to make, as the three of us, we have to make decisions, and the staff make recommendations with what seemingly is never enough money. And I don't envy Dana's job because Dana's the one who has to go through and vet all of these fantastic programs and then make recommendations with what seemingly is never enough money to make the impacts that we want to make as a group in the community. And so, and then there's the three of us, all of whom have different thoughts and ideas on what we want to do in the community with these dollars. And we have to, figure out a way to agree when we don't all have quite the same priorities. And so there's been more times that I care to remember, more times that I care to think about when some of my priorities, some of the things that I wanted didn't get funded either at all or at the levels that I wanted them to, because either the two of you or our previous colleague didn't agree with the things that I want. And so
I always agree with you, John. What are you talking
about? And so this is such is the nature of the program, and it's interesting that our former administrator Don Brown's on this call during this conversation, because I've had these conversations with Administrator Wilson many times. I've had these conversations. I remember having conversations with then Administrator Brown because I remember becoming a county commissioner in 2009 when we had this very robust community partnership dollar amount, and then the very next year it got slashed almost in half because of the economy and what happened with the economy and the budget. And so decisions had very, very, we had a very, very tough time with the community partnership program when Ken Wilson was our budget director. And so we had very, very difficult decisions we had to make back in those days. And so, it's such is the nature of this program that we have this great program where we'll get to make these fantastic investments in the community with these dollars, but we also have what are very, very difficult decisions for the staff, Dana in particular, and amongst the commissioners, because we have to prioritize, and so it's just kind of the nature of what we're doing. I agree with both of you. I agree with Marilyn for today. Let's pass this thing today, and then let's go look for some dollars for Big Brothers Big Sisters. And I think if I'm not mistaken, Deputy Administrator Bivens has some thoughts on that. I see her nodding down there on my camera, but I think she has some thoughts on that.
Our county administrator touched on it, Commissioner O'Grady, regarding the resolution that's coming forth on Thursday. So we'll move forward with however the commissioners proceed.
More money is coming next Thursday via resolution for Big Brothers Big Sisters, an additional $180,000 for youth mentoring and academic support services.
I mean, even in particular in this resolution, I mean, this isn't the way it's working out isn't the way that I saw it, in terms of these particular grants. I mean, my input wasn't exactly the way I wanted to see it happen, but, and I think you guys know that the next resolution isn't exactly the way I wanted it either, but, we make decisions, we give our best input, and then we roll with it. And so, that's, I guess, so that's my 2 cents. I'd like to, staff recommendations are staff recommendations. The commissioners are the commissioners. We need to make, we obviously we make the final decisions, but we also all have to come to an agreement on this kind of stuff. These are tough decisions.
Well, before we move for passage, I will say I agree we can pass this, and I'm going to be supportive of it. At the end of the day, I respect from a colleague standpoint, I think it's all about we huddle up and we make a decision, and if it's not going to end the world, we just have to compromise with it. So I'm okay with going forward. I do want to say to the staff and certainly our administrator and folks who are involved, I don't want you to ever feel as though I'm questioning where your heart is or how you feel. But at the end of the day, I take my approach to this job is that the three of us, Commissioner Brown, Commissioner Gray, and myself, are the face of Franklin County, and we have to go before the voters and answer to everything that you all do. And when you make recommendations, when you take actions, when you do things in your job, we hold you accountable, but we get held accountable by the 1.3 million people who live in Franklin County. And so, I don't mind that. It comes with the territory, but I want to own what that is. And so when I have a concern about what I think is not my own personal priority or perspective, then I'm going to state it. And I don't want you to take it personal. I think you all do a good job. And I think your heart's in the right place, and so don't question that. Just know that I always state that perspective when it comes to it. That being said, I'm okay with moving forward. I will just point out, though, one technical point, because these are CARES Act money, I think we're dealing with the response of the impact from COVID-19 and their losses, as Don Brown pointed out, all these losses, that's what we're trying to mitigate. And so even though the money going forward might be, and the Thursday might be another allocation to them, we're talking about loss impact. And so, we want to reconcile that so that, because even still, if they get that, they still have to cut something. cut services, cut whatever. And so I just want to be clear. So I, administrator, would like to ask for a second recommendation to figure out how we can support them so we can mitigate their loss so that those young people are impacted. That being said, I would be supportive and encourage a motion for passage.
I'll move for passage of 74320.
Second.
Moved and seconded, voting Commissioner Brown,
Yes.
Commissioner Boyce,
Yes.
Commissioner O'Grady.
Yes.
Resolution number 743-20 has been adopted. Thank you, Mr. Brown. Resolution number 744-20, resolution authorizing a one-year contract with the Bishop Griffin Resource Center to support efforts to increase food access for Franklin County residents in the amount of $101,550.
Yes, Commissioners Dana McCrary, Administrator, Community Partnerships. The Bishop Griffin Resource Center is located on the east side of Columbus. They work out of the Christ the King Parish, and the work that they do aligns with the health goal of the blueprint to the blueprint to reduce poverty in Franklin County, the health goal. And in doing so, they are increasing food access to food insecure grandparents who are caring for grandchildren, new Americans, and as well as families that are just trying to make it, going through crisis. So this funding that we are providing to the Bishop Griffin Resource Center will allow them to purchase heavy equipment such as walk-in freezers and refrigerators and things of that nature, which support their existence as a choice food pantry. And that is really important too, because families, I mean, at the end of the day, we all want to be able to have some choice about the food that we eat. We want to be able to provide our family things, not helpful foods, not just what is provided or what's available, but things that we know that our families genuinely like. So it's very important that they are a choice pantry and that they are supporting Rise Together and increasing food access on the east side of Columbus. So pending any questions, I would respectfully request the approval of this resolution.
I got a question for you with passage. This is a good resolution. The center is going to be outstanding. How much are we funding of their requests? What percentage of their requests are we funding?
I don't have that number in front of me, Commissioner. I'm sorry?
It's about a quarter. They asked for $400-some thousand.
Is that what they submitted in their request?
Yes. Yes,
Yeah.
I'll be happy to forward the request to you, Commissioner Boyce.
Okay.
There were lots of items in their budget that they were requesting support for, and we sort of carved out the equipment and identified that as what we would support.
Like I said, I think it's a great expenditure. It's meaningful and impactful, so I don't have an issue with it. I'm just trying to keep up with funding folks. So very good.
This is what I was referring to earlier in the last conversation. This is, I would have been hopeful and supportive of the entire request. The recommendation was for this amount, but I also then have reached out to Deputy Administrator Bivens because I think that the full request also goes towards the poverty blueprint, and so I've asked that they look at the entire request to see if there are other type of dollars, whether they are CARES Act dollars or JFS dollars or whatever they may be, that might be able to go towards the remainder of the request, because I think the entirety of the request addresses the poverty blueprint, because these dollars are for dollars that are for the instructional kitchen and things of that nature, but they're also doing things there that are, for instance, they have a clothing bank. They have, I mean, everything they're doing there goes towards the poverty blueprint. So I think that there's certainly ways that that we are addressing the poverty blueprint, and therefore we should consider the entire request, even if it's not through these dollars, through the community partnership grant request. We should continue to consider the remainder of the request, even if we fund it in other ways.
Well, Commissioner Gray, I just add to, I hear what you're saying, and I would be supportive. I'd like to see the whole request, but based on what you said, I'd be supportive of that. And again, I think it's the commissioners that ultimately make that decision, and so I'd be supportive of that. But I'd like to see the details of the request. But all that sounds perfect to me, and so I think that's the commissioner's decision.
Which is the same thing about the previous request for Big Brothers Big Sisters. Is we can look to find other, as Administrator Wilson is saying, there's dollars coming next week. I mean, there's other ways to fund the request. There's always other ways to take a look at these requests. So when the recommendation was made for a partial funding of the request, I said that's fine. Let's just continue to look for the remainder of the dollars in other ways.
Yeah, this is County Administrator Kenneth Wilson. The part of the request that's funded is the major equipment for this initiative. The other part of the request that was initially received totaled $369,905, and that was for classrooms, offices, and other parts of this project.
Yeah, Commissioner Boyce, I don't even. This is a request. This facility is very much like the Guadalupe Center that is on the west side that Ramona Reyes runs over on the west side. It's very similar type of facility, a very similar type work.
We got
and a very similar clientele.
Yep.
That's what's going to make it.
President O'Grady, the JFS team, due to the PRC construction, we've been trying to get that work out. We do have staff that are looking at the request that Dana sent over to me last week regarding this resolution to see what additional dollars, if any, could be designated towards this proposal.
Great.
That's what makes our integration efforts so important when we look at health and human services and all the funding streams available. In order to make sustainable recommendations that will help organizations through the long haul, we got to use multiple funding streams wherever possible to leverage all of the resources that we have towards these efforts. Because one thing about the Corona Relief Fund is that those are one-time dollars no matter how you look at it. So we want to try to, of course, we're going to use all those dollars as effectively as we can, but we also got to think about the obligations that you all have and want to fund for the residents for the long haul. Thank you.
Any other questions, comments? Otherwise, I'll move for approval of 74420.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Voting. Commissioner Brown?
Yes.
Commissioner Boyce?
Yes.
Commissioner O'Grady?
Yes.
Resolution number 744-20 has been adopted.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, the purchasing department.
Resolution number 745-20. Resolution approving purchases for various Franklin County agencies in the amount of $3,062,409.92.
Good morning, Commissioners. Megan Perry Balanier, Director of Purchasing. This resolution requests your approval of 82 purchase orders for which the County Auditor has pre-certified available funding. This week, 8 out of 17 eligible POs totaling $159,692.98 are being presented for award to 3 women business enterprises, 3 minority business enterprises, and 2 small and emerging business enterprises. This represents 47% of the eligible PO volume
and 62% of the eligible PO dollar value. Pending any questions, I request your approval of this resolution.
I'll move for passage of 74520.
Second.
Moved and seconded voting. Commissioner Boyce, or excuse me,
Yes.
Brown, I'm sorry, Commissioner.
Yes.
Thank you. Commissioner Boyce.
Yes.
Commissioner O'Grady.
Yes.
Resolution number 745-20 has been adopted.
Thank you.
Myself after 2 hours, I apologize. Resolution number 746-20 from the Board of Commissioners, because apparently I'm going to do President O'Grady's job also. I apologize for that too.
The Board of Commissioners.
Your clerk has gone rogue. I apologize, sir. Resolution number 746-20. Resolution appointing LaShawn Carter to Impact Community Action Board of Directors.
Good morning, Commissioners. Eric Janis, Deputy Administrator. Pending any questions, ask for your approval of this resolution.
I'll move for approval of 74620.
Second.
Moved and seconded voting. Commissioner Brown,
Yes.
Commissioner Boyce,
Yes.
Commissioner O'Grady.
Yes.
Resolution number 746-20 has been adopted.
Thank you.
All right. So, Clerk Hindenlang, do we have what are those called?
Journalizations.
Journalization.
Yes, Commissioner. 2. Economic Development and Planning. The first, case number ANX-27-20, an expedited type 2 annexation petition. ANX-27-20 was filed with the Franklin County Economic Development and Planning Department on October 15th, 2020. The petition is requesting to annex 3.22 acres, more or less, from Township to the village of Harrisburg. The petition will be considered by the Board of Commissioners on November 17th, 2020. Site 1062 School Street, PID number 230-000021. And the second, case number ANX-28-20, an expedited type 2 annexation petition, ANX-28-20, was filed with the Franklin County Economic Development and Planning Department on October 15th, 2020. The petition is requesting to annex 58.3 acres, more or less, from Township to the city of Columbus. The petition will be considered by the Board of Commissioners on November 17th, 2020. Site 4465 Catella Drive, PID number 110-001051, Central College Road, PID number 110-000143, 4577 Central College Road, PID number 110-005921, 7350 Cubbage Road, PID number 110-002993, and lastly, 7245 Lee Road, PID number 110-005711.
All right. So that concludes the business of the Board of Commissioners for October 27th. Does anybody, Mr. Hopkins, do you have anything for us today?
No question at the moment, Commissioners, but I'll be in touch soon. Thank you.
Great. Anybody else have anything for the good of the order today? All right. We will see everybody soon. Take care. Have a good day.
Thank you, everyone.